Welcome to another edition of From the Coach's Office, brought to you by the Varsity Voices Media Network. I'm Dan Frevaletti, and here, as always, with my co-host, Joe Frevaletti. Today, we welcome to the podcast the head coach for the Carmel Coursers, former Chicago Bear and NFL fullback, and current sideline reporter for Bears broadcasts on ESPN Chicago, Jason McKie. Coach McKie, thank you so much for joining us on the Varsity Voices.
No, thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. I respect what you guys do. Anytime, there's opportunities to grow the game, whether that be throughout coaching development, but now radio, especially high school football. We really appreciate it as a high school coach and being around the game. Appreciate it. So really, really excited to be on here, and thanks for having me.
If you are looking to buy or sell a home, contact RE/MAX Realtor and Circle of Legends recipient Christopher Cobb. Let Chris's extensive negotiating experience work to guide you on all of your real estate buying and selling needs. Contact Christopher now to discuss the right strategy for your personalized real estate buying and selling plan. His number is 630-420-0070, or you can visit his website at christophercobb.com. Well, thanks. And I was checking out the background, which I knew a little bit as a lifelong Bears fan and follower of the Bears. But I was thinking about it. Your weekend responsibilities in the fall are really extensive. As a sideline reporter, I know, I can imagine that you just don't show up and go. There's a lot to that and being prepared. How difficult is it for you to manage your time during the fall?
You know what? When you love what you do, it's not work. So, my fall is football nonstop, 7 days a week, which is awesome. I know my wife gets frustrated at times, but hey, at the same time, I love it, man. I get an opportunity to, develop guys into men via high school football. And then I get an opportunity to go out there and watch NFL football and continue trying to grow the game, but also bring the listeners closer to the game, via our radio broadcast with two of my great colleagues, Jeff Joniak and also former Bear Tom Thayer. So getting a chance to work with those guys, getting a chance to be around the players, traveling with the team, being with the team, you build a relationship. And it's been awesome because it's really helped enhance what I do in terms of coaching, but it also gives our football program at the high school a different perspective. So, we'll have some of the guys come out to the high school and work out, and our kids get to be there. We had the Bears D linemen there a couple weeks ago. Javon Dexter, Dominique Robinson, Daniel Hardy was there. Austin Booker was there. So our guys got to see those guys work out. When Justin Fields was still here, he would come out to school and, through to some of our receivers. So it's definitely awesome. It's a great, it's definitely a blessing to have these opportunities. And, it's just fun. So, a lot of time management to make sure that we're prepared for a game week and we're prepared to go out there on Friday night and put our best foot forward. And then after that, Saturday it's traveling, breaking down our high school game and getting the stats in, and then, transitioning Saturday, actually throughout the week, making sure that I have, the rosters broken down for the Bears opponents and name pronunciation and different storylines, and then going out there and executing that on Sunday and conducting interviews post game with some of the players. So it's fun. It's definitely a blessing. And when you love football, it doesn't get no better for me.
No, your cup is full of football.
Right. So, Coach, if you could bring one NFL element to high school football and to Carmel football, what would it be, or what has it been?
It's been too much. Actually, I've had to cut, just offensively. We run a pro style offense, so I've had to understand that, not that our kids aren't mentally able to be able to handle what we throw at them or what we install. It's just the time. In high school, you don't have as much time as you do when you're playing in the NFL. In the NFL, we're in the building at 6 a.m. We're not leaving till 7 p.m. So it's all football. It's like a regular day job, but it's all football. Whereas high school, these kids are in class. You get out of class, you got to lift, you got to meet, you got to go practice. So I don't have an opportunity to have these kids all day. So trying to install some of the things that we install, I've had to scale back and understanding that, hey, the more that our kids can retain and have a clear understanding of what we're trying to do, the higher percentage of them going out there executing it at a high level. So, having all these ideas and being around the game at the NFL level and being at practices and going out there and and seeing the games, you come back with all these ideas that you like, that you know will give you an advantage. But then you got to say, first off, mentally, can our kids handle it? And physically, do we have, not no shade to none of our receivers, but we don't have a DJ Moore that can run that type of route right now.
Right.
So,
Yep.
but at the same time, it's the advantage is, it's giving me a lot of ideas in terms of the way we run our program, the way we run our practice. And like I said before, it gives our kids different opportunities that a lot of these programs don't have around Chicagoland.
I thought for sure you were going to say you brought back, and I watched a little film. Now you may have this. I didn't watch a ton of goal line or anything, but I thought for sure I was going to see some traditional I formation, ISO, fullback lead power play, fullback in the flat, third and 3. Do you miss the traditional I formation?
Yeah, we run that not as much as I would like to. I would love to run that 100% of the time. We don't really have a traditional true fullback, so running 21 personnel, we don't really, we will dabble in it a little bit, but we don't major in it, so we do have that in. We will get the fullback out in the flat and give him a bone and stuff like that. But yeah, I would love to actually just really major in 21 personnel, go old school, I formation, run the ball down their throats. But, when you got to tailor your offense to the personnel that you have. And all the great coaches know that, a lot of times in this game, no matter what level it is, it's players over plays. The players dictate what type of scheme you can run and install. So that's another thing that I've had to learn, despite being a fullback and wanting to run the ball 95% of the time, our personnel and, the skill players that we have on the perimeter and the quarterback that we have, it doesn't necessarily dictate that. So it's been awesome. It's been awesome to grow year after year and being able to change your scheme, in all 3 phases, offense, defense, and special teams, and being able to understand and really dig in and understanding what schemes work based upon the personnel that you have.
Yeah, so I know, Coach, you've been at Carmel now for several years, but what inspired you to take on the head coaching role at Carmel?
Yeah, so when I finished playing football, when I retired, I actually went down to Florida International, and Ron Turner, who was our offensive coordinator, was the head coach down at Florida International, and I was, was the assistant running back coach, took on a coaching intern because I knew I wanted to coach. And, I knew when I was done playing the game of football, I either wanted to talk about football or I wanted to coach it. So we got into coaching right out the gate. And my older son, who played at Northern Illinois, he was, getting ready to go into high school and wanted to play college ball. And me being down in Miami, where FIU is, I was away from my family a lot, didn't move them down there. And I was like, it's time for me to take a step back and really make sure that I'm training my kids and making sure that, I'm getting them ready for football. Because, as you know, college coaching especially, you're gone more than an NFL player, so I was gone all the time. So I said, I got to take a step back. And I did, and opened up a training facility with 2 of my teammates, Alex Brown and Adrian Peterson. And, we started training and mentoring kids, and I kind of got my coaching fix that way. And then when I had an opportunity to come back when my older son was, just finishing up college, my other younger son was getting ready to go into high school, and they were older, so there was my opportunity to get back into coaching. And it just worked out good because I was able to, when I came to Carmel, a lot of the parents of the kids that I trained at our gym, it's like, man, wherever Coach McKie goes, that's where our kids are going. So it wasn't like I had to go out there and recruit kids per se. The kids they were following, myself and the coaching staff that I was able to put in place because, I had been around these kids, mentoring these kids, training these kids, and developing these kids since they were in 2nd and 3rd grade. So it just everything just kind of worked out well, and it was perfect timing. And being in a great community like Carmel, a lot of our NFL coaches, their kids went there, so I was real familiar with Carmel. We would go out there and practice as well when we wanted to get away from Hallis Hall. I knew it was a really good academic environment, and I tell everybody, my son, who's a senior now, who's getting ready to graduate, he would have went to Carmel whether or not I was the coach there or not, but it just worked out that way to where I was able to have that opportunity and became a part of a great high school that prioritizes academics and that has a great athletic program that has, great administrative support behind it. So it was a no-brainer for me.
That's great. And We used the term last year. We talked a lot about schools being Catholic leagued during the
Yeah.
season to describe teams that were clearly playoff teams, but the
Yeah.
CCL schedule just got them. And it was a meat grinder, and everyone has a term for it. But
Yeah.
it at least played a role in determining their fate over the course of the year last year. The schedule is pretty much, it's exactly the same, I think, as last year for you. So how do you feel about the level of competition you face and moving into next year and looking at the schedule and how it shapes up?
I love it. I really do. I think that there's some coaches that don't they're great coaches, but they truly don't like the competition. So they want to have that that schedule that's probably more so in their favor. I'm a coach that I love to compete. I'm a sore loser, so last year just has really been a thorn in my side, since the last game. We were pretty bad last year. So I want to play the best of the best. I don't care, how this thing plays out. You move up, you move down to multiply. It doesn't matter to me. I tell our kids, hey guys, we play who we play. I want to play the best competition. I want to play the best programs. And I mean, you see our schedule. We've got such a great schedule. So many great programs out there. So many great coaches that are doing a tremendous job, not just coaching, but developing young men and giving these young men opportunities to go on to college. So anytime I get a chance to line up my team against those coaches, I want to compete. But at the same time, there's a mutual level of respect because I respect what they do. And these coaches, so they're dedicating a lot of time to this. They're away from their families. They're not getting paid a king's ransom, but they're shaping our future via football. So anytime I get a chance to line up against these coaches, and every single week, based upon our schedule and our conference, as you guys know, it's a playoff environment. So it's awesome, man. It's right where we want to be. And, I'm really excited about, what can take place this year.
And you mentioned, you said we were pretty bad last year, and I don't think either Joe or I thought that, in just the number of close games you played, and the tough schedule and the one game that I've kind of circled for this year that I didn't last year, only because I really didn't know much about the opponent, but that Lake Forest game, and I'm really making sure that we follow that closely, and I'm a big geographic rivalry guy, so I got the map out and I looked and I saw. They're under 10 miles away from one another. Is that a bigger rivalry than we give it credit for?
Yeah, it really is. They got us last year the first time, and, we've had a number the past few years, and they got us last year. They had a really good team, well-coached team. It's a rivalry just because of the teams, but also there's a little bit of a coaching rivalry as well. James Big Cat Williams is on that team. Ahmad Merrick coaches there as well. So, myself, Olin Cruz, and Rasheed Davis, there's some bragging rights that go on in the offseason. And right now, we can't say much because they got us. But yeah, it's definitely that's a program that's always making a playoff run, that has done a good job of, sending guys to college, a program of winning, a well-coached program. So anytime you have a chance to go against a team that's right in your backyard, it brings the community out. It's a really good environment. And it's a good chance for us to go up against, a public league team, so it's fun. It really is.
Yeah, so you've got some high-profile, highly talented player. Primarily, everybody talks about Trey Taylor, right? Your quarterback, and rightly so. He's extremely talented. We love watching him play. But who else on your team, Coach, should we be on the lookout for this year as far as who you're counting on?
Man, it's awesome. Like, just to have – we have a lot of great kids in our program that are great young men that just happen to be really good at football. And, this year it's so many guys, I think, that have a chance at being really special. Just by the way they performed last year as freshmen, sophomores, and juniors, but the way they prepared this offseason, the way they bought into our offseason program, I think there's a few guys that are really going to have a good season. Kai Owens has been a receiver that started for us since he was a freshman. We lost him after game 3, and he was putting together a great season. So he's going into his senior year. He's a kid that's got a bunch of MAC offers out there, who's worked his tail off to get back from injury. He's going to have he's always had a great year since he's been in a Carmel uniform, but he's really going to take off this year. We got some young running backs that'll be taking over from a really good back that we had in Donovan Day, who's going on to play college ball at Valparaiso. But, we have 3 guys that's going to fill that void that are really talented, really special. We have a young he'll be a sophomore next year. He was a freshman last year. Jameer Miles, who played everywhere for us, who played receiver, played outside linebacker, played safety. And this kid has the potential to be really special. He's long, he's athletic, he's extremely physical. A lot of coaches have been in to see him. He's definitely going to be a D1 kid, but I think he's going to really have a huge year this year. So, I'm excited. You talk about Trey. Trey is Trey. Trey's a workaholic. He has elite talent, but everybody can look at his physical talent, but what makes him special and what separates him from his peers and any other quarterback in the country is his understanding at a young age of the game mentally, in terms of defenses, in terms of coverages, in terms of understanding what each individual has on any given defense. He knows the responsibility that each individual has on a defense, and based upon what defense they're playing or what coverage they're playing, he knows what they can and cannot do, and that's what makes him so special, along with his fundamentals. So, you look at a guy like that and you combine that with the work ethic, the sky's the limit. And, I think he's taken a huge step in leadership this year in terms of galvanizing his teammates to go out there and player-led practices, getting extra lifts in, galvanizing his guys together, watching film. He's done a really good job. And that's what you expect from, a quarterback that wants to be elite. And you got to be an elite leader, not just an elite player. And that's what he is.
And you bring up Trey Taylor, and obviously, we saw he committed to Nebraska over the past week or so, and not only Trey, but we love the white division you're in, and I might say it's our favorite one, at least last year watching the division. But you've got Trey, you've got Israel Abrams, you've got Jamin Williams, all three all area performers. Because of that, and that it should be called the division, the quarterback division, but because of that, do you have to put more focus this summer on the defensive side of the ball, change it up, or at least think about those guys in the division? Or is it more of like, hey, we do what we do and we've just got to continue getting better at that, but we're stick with what we do?
Yeah. There's things that obviously you mentioned all those players that have, elite talent that's going to go on and do a lot of good things. So anytime you get a chance to face them, it's definitely a challenge defensively. We know as a defense that there's things that you have to do to maintain a competitive edge. So you can't be vanilla and just continue to do what you do. I mean, those coaches are studying us in the offseason just like we're studying them. So, you got to have some wrinkles and throw in some things that can give you that competitive advantage. So, we're always trying to do anything we can to improve our team, to improve our scheme, and to make sure that, we're doing whatever we can to maintain that competitive edge against our opponents.
Yeah, so the high school game, as you know, has changed a lot, even within the last couple of years, Coach. And I think along with that, there's a fair amount of challenges that go along with that too. What do you see some of the biggest challenges in kind of the current high school environment or current high school game?
Yeah, it's tough. I've seen there's, it's rough when you have, kids are being recruited earlier, kids are committing earlier. We're dealing with that. There's kids are losing opportunities to play college ball because of the reduction in scholarships. So, I tell our kids, hey, if you expect to be a D1 guy or even a guy that's going to go on to play college ball, you got to be extra special. You got to make sure you're checking off those boxes. And the biggest box you got to check off is your character. And, that's what these coaches are looking for when they come in the building. They're looking at your character. They want to know what type of human being you are. And then they look at your film and your transcripts, obviously. But, it's been a drastic change like that even with NIL now, kids are able to get paid in high school. And it's crazy. So the dynamic has definitely changed. I think nowadays, today's athlete, I think there's somewhat of a level of entitlement now. I think guys feel like they've arrived without putting in the work. And, the work is what wins. The work is what gets you there. But some guys, they have a different mindset. So I think that's what's, hurting some of these kids, on the high school level right now.
Coach, you mentioned that some of the attention that they're getting and is coming earlier, faster, sooner, and it's a lot, right? And it's constant. Yeah. Your experience in the NFL, and as someone who covers the NFL today, it's got to come in handy when you're having a star player like Trey Taylor and managing some of the attention that he gets. Do you find any lessons that you can give to him? And you shared some of them with us, but what advice or anything do you have for either from yourself or from other people that is available to Trey to help him manage the spotlight?
Yeah, I think, he's had some things in which he's learned. He's had some lessons that he's learned along the way, and he understands that a lot of things that he does is going to be under a microscope. So he's,
Right.
understanding that he has to be more aware of the decisions he's making, of the things he's doing, the content that he puts out on social media. Even on signing day, it's funny because, his biggest moment brought his biggest lesson. And, we talked about that in terms of him, the way he did his hat presentation, in terms of, with U of I, and then obviously switching and putting the Nebraska hat on, and the way he did it. We had to talk about that, myself and his father and stuff like that. And, he had to apologize for the way he did it, but it was a great learning lesson. It was a great learning opportunity for him. And it was a lesson in his biggest moment. And that's the things that we've been trying to instill in him, that, hey, you know what, like, when you're getting all this tension, with all this attention comes a big responsibility, because you're under a microscope and you're getting attention early. But he's a guy that the more attention he gets, the harder he works. And not just the harder he works, but the more selfless he becomes. And there's a lot of things that people don't see in terms of Trey going out and throwing for coaches when they come visit, not because he has interest in that school, but because he wants his receivers to get an opportunity to be evaluated. He's a very selfless person. And to have a young man that's only a sophomore right now that's getting all the attention that he's getting, most young men, it would be all about them, but it's the complete opposite with Trey Taylor. And I think that's one of the rarest qualities that he has. And I think that quality is going to take him a long way, far beyond the football field.
I know it's important to you, Coach, to build kind of, the right culture, right, within high school, within your program. In today's environment, how do you go about building kind of that winning culture within a high school program or high school environment?
Yeah, it's tough. It's something that you have to work on every single day. And, we throw that word out there, culture, but it's a living thing. It's it's a living, breathing thing that you have to, impart in every single day. And that's a struggle, because in school and within our program, we have, a set of expectations, a standard, but at the same time, it's very important that our parents understand that, hey, we're trying to instill discipline within our program. So when your son goes home, we need that level of expectation, that standard to follow. Like, I don't need to discipline him at practice. And then he goes home and you say, you know what, coach is just being mean to you. No, we're trying to help develop him into a man. So it's, when we talk about having a football family, it truly is, because it takes more than just the coaching staff to build a culture. The parents have to continue to be a part of that culture, and they have to continue to build that culture and instill that culture to their student athlete when he goes home. So I think that's the biggest thing, is trying to get the parents on board. And as a coach, it's tough, having the right assistants in that can echo and preach the same message, but also that can be culture builders at the same time, because as a head coach, there's a lot, you wear a lot of hats, and it's hard to be able to watch everybody all the time in terms of discipline. But I have a great coaching staff and a bunch of great assistant coaches that really help me monitor that, and that really help us, instill our standard, and they walk on our expectations on a daily basis.
All right, so last question, Coach, and again, we really appreciate you coming on and talking with us. And this is a question I've asked several of other of the coaches that we've interviewed in the Chicago Catholic League, and we've had a fair amount over the past 8-9 months or so. But next year, if we're interviewing you at the same time, what do you hope we're talking about as far as Carmel football is concerned?
Yeah, I mean, the obvious. I hope we're talking about, us, coming off a state championship win. Us talking about, what it took to win a state championship, the journey that we had to go through to get there. Talking about, the transformation from not making the playoffs last year to being able to host up that state championship, and talking about where guys are going to school and where they'll be signing at in terms of college, and talking about making another run to win another one. So that's obviously the goal. That's why we play this game. If you're playing this game just to make the playoffs or just to be competitive, if you're coaching it, then I think you're failing. And I tell our kids, hey, we talk about state championships all the time, but everything we do has to be at an elite state championship level. And that goes back to our lifting. That goes back to just our practice schedule. That goes back to our players' diets and nutrition. That goes back to our players doing extra work away from school. That goes back to us as coaches making sure our scheme is being presented and installed at a high level to make sure our players retain the information, but not just retain the information, they can go out there and execute at a state championship level. So if we're not doing those things at that type of level, but we're going out there preaching it, hey, state champs, and we're breaking it down on state champs after practice, well, then we're doing it an injustice. So, that's why I coach this game. I want our kids to be able to I want our kids to have an opportunity to be the best that they can, and to be the best that you can in the state is, obviously hosting up that state championship.
Well, Coach, we really appreciate your time today and would like to thank you for coming on Varsity Voices in this special edition of From the Coach's Office. If you're listening out there and you enjoyed this, please like, follow, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and look for us on social media. Coach, again, thank you very much. We hope to talk to you soon, and best of luck this season.
No, thank you, guys. I appreciate you having me on, and I respect what you guys do. Thanks for growing the game.
Thank you.
All right.
If you are looking to buy or sell a home, contact RE/MAX Realtor and Circle of Legends recipient Christopher Cobb. Let Chris's extensive negotiating experience work to guide you on all of your real estate buying and selling needs. Contact Christopher now to discuss the right strategy for your personalized real estate buying and selling plan. His number is 630-420-0070, or you can visit his website at christophercobb.com.